Hey guys, what's going on? KP here. We're back with another episode of the KP Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. This is the podcast where maybe you will learn about one of your favorite bands or get to know a band you never heard of before. I'm very happy with the band I have on today. I got two members of this band. They just dropped a new album. It sounds fantastic. They came back out of nowhere. Please welcome Logan and Jake from the band Reflections. How are you guys doing today?
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys for being on here. So I'm going to fan out a little bit. This new album sounds amazing. I'm friends with the producer that did it. And I was blown away that, one, he did it. Two, how great it sounds. Three, you guys are back. So thank you for that album, and shout out to Jeff Key for that production on that album.
Yeah, Jeff really helped bring that all up to the next level.
So Reflections is back 2020. Who all is in Reflections, and where are you guys from?
Well, there's still the three core members that have been with the band since the beginning, which is myself, Patrick, and Francis. We all kind of are from the Metro Minneapolis Twin Cities area. And then our drummer, Nick, is out in New York. He's pretty much been with the band roughly the entire time as well. We like to think of it that way. Mm-hmm. And then just recently, I started talking with Logan, and he can kind of give you some details on his whereabouts.
I live in Lafayette, Louisiana, so I'm pretty out there from the rest of the guys.
I'd say so. I mean, for the core members of the band, when and how did the band really begin?
Funny enough, when I was in high school, I was in another band, just with a couple other people from my area, and we were kind of discovering YouTube at this time. And at that time, there weren't as many videos on YouTube. So we were looking up guitars of people that were just shredding, and we were kind of trying to localize it. And we found this video of Patty just sweep picking and just wailing on his guitar. And I was like, man, who is that kid? And then throughout the next couple weeks, I was sitting in my English class, and I realized that he was in my class.
No way.
Yeah, and it took me a while till I finally went over to him, and I was like, hey, do you play guitar? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, do you have a video on YouTube? And he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, I've been watching you play guitar. We need to jam or something. And he and I started jamming and really kind of found this different musical taste that we both wanted to shoot for, that really the band that we were both playing for at that time was kind of out back and a little more of we wanted to really try some new things. And that's kind of what led us to asking Francis if he wanted to play bass. And then we kind of started writing our first record in his apartment.
Wow. And you guys have come a long way since then. I mean, what year did that album come out, that first one?
2012.
And as you move on with your musical career, and you hear old songs, how do you feel about them now?
There's always it's weird because you get that sense of nostalgia with things.
Right.
And you always, when you hear things, you're in hindsight, you're like, I wish that would have been different. Could have taken a little more time here. But I do think that's something we've been talking about, and that we'd really like to do, just because of how old that album is and the very primitive way that we did record it. It would be nice to revisit it and restructure it and just kind of build it back up in a new way. But, some songs you're very how did that one even get on there,
Right. Now, is this the first time you're talking about this restructuring of this first album?
It's been kind of talked about a little bit, but we've never really like guaranteed it or anything. It's always just a thing that we've talked about and very much so wanted to do, just to kind of really shine it in the light that we feel like it could have been, you know.
Yeah, okay. So I'm asking next. I'm on the edge of my seat going, are they going to re-record this album? What's going on right now?
We would like to.
Okay. We'll keep an ear out for that, see if maybe that happens. So Logan, how did you become part of this band?
So I guess a little bit of a backstory to bring Jeff into context with this whole mix too is I was living in New Hampshire for a while, and that's how I met Jeff and how he came to, work on the album, because he's done other work for me before, and he's always been like a really good friend of mine. But I was living there for a while, and then I think it was summer of 2018, I moved to Arizona, and I started playing in this band called Mother Sound, which is very like Silent Planet, Invent Animate-esque sound, which is a very specific like melodic metalcore sound. And my roots have always been in like heavier stuff. Like I really, really love that sound and I love playing it. But I also was like, I had a void in me for, putting out music that was heavier, because that's, when I picked up guitar to play in a band, my first guitar that I played like guitar in a band was an 8-string. So I've always just loved like really heavy music. It's always been like my route as a guitar player. So I wanted to do something else, and at the time I was getting into like this really like vague subgenre called fall, and I made a solo project so I could, get my ideas out and have a little bit of fun. And the solo project's called Dal Ave, which I still do stuff with. But, I put out like a 4-song EP last April, actually. And I was just putting out videos, having fun with it. And then last summer, I moved to Lafayette, and, things with Mother Sound were kind of trickling out. People were wanting to go their different ways. So I was going to spend more time on my solo project and kind of just focus on that. And like 2 weeks after moving to Lafayette, I'm just like kind of settling in, chilling out. And then I get this like Facebook message from Jake, and he reached out and he was like, hey, like I saw like your solo project, and like I was been watching your videos for a little while, and like I really like the music that you've been writing, and I'm in Reflections, if you don't know what, like that band. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I just really like the music you're writing, and we've been looking to maybe add in another guitar player, because we haven't had a second guitar player for a while, and maybe come join in and help with this album. So that's kind of how it happened.
That's awesome. I love hearing how things happen, stories, especially. I mean, we kicked it off great with meeting the guitar player in your English class, so I'm already in a fantastic mood with that. So I do want to go back. Fans will remember Reflections dropping the 2015 album, The Color Clear. I remember scrolling through Facebook, discovering you guys, and I remember when that album did come out. Not very long after that, the band decided to disband. Well, any reasons for the breakup at that time? Any ideas? Anything you can share?
Yeah, there was a lot of really specific things that led to that. Without going into like too much detail about certain things, I will just say that there was some really, really bad family illness that we needed to make sure that some of us were home for. And dealing just with the aftermath of that was something that we knew that it wasn't going to be something that you just go home, deal with it and move on, that it was going to be something that would take a while. And, when you're on the road and you're seeing your family just like go through these things, you know, it's like you just realize that there's way more important things to be doing, and that, you know, you can't see your brothers like that, you know, with just this unbelievable weight on their mind. So a combination of things at home with family and health, and we honestly felt like we were not getting taken care of by our management and our label in a way that we had hoped for. Because, you know, we have our fans that were like giving us this really great response to the music, and, you know, everything was great to us, but then our label was just like, oh, this isn't the direction we thought you guys were going to go. So they just kind of like stopped working for us. And it just made us very jaded about the whole thing. And that on top of just underlying issues. And we just had to call it for a while. We really wanted to get off the label, and that turned into a few-year process for me. Over the course of that hiatus, that was like pretty much my goal the entire time, was to get the band off of our contract, because they kept wanting us to do another album. And I was telling them, we're not going to do another album for the label if we're not going to tour, because what's the point in that? You know, we're not going to have that opportunity to tour and sell merch when our members are at home dealing with, you know, with this grief and everything, you know?
Right.
And they were really, you know, like, what's the rush? This and that. I'm like, well, I don't think you understand that this is more than just a band. This is like our creative outlet. This is our therapy, you know, and you're taking that away from us, because how am I supposed to sit here and actually work on something and invest all my time and energy into it when I know that potentially at the end of the day, I have to just give it to you, you know, like, and then finally after myself and he wasn't exactly our manager at the time, because we actually let go of everyone that we were working with. But he was like an old band friend. He was like the band's very first manager that really got us some of our first tours and helped us out with that stuff. He was also contacting them, and then we finally got the release letter from them. So that was nice. And then we, you know, myself really, really started working on the new record. Was very inspired by that freedom. But yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of where the band kind of decided to step back and what kind of happened with all that.
Right. I was a little curious about what happened. I mean, I didn't know any of you guys personally at the time, so I feel bad for everything that went down, but I'm glad you guys are back on your feet now. Right now I'm talking to Reflections. We got the vocalist and the guitarist Logan and Jake with me. 5 years later, after the breakup, you guys are back with a new lineup. What started or what sparked the initial conversation to get the band back together?
It was kind of, you know, it wasn't like one conversation. It was basically when the band stopped, Francis, our bassist, was at a point where he thought he was done with the band entirely. Our drummer, Nick, was dealing with all of the things at home. So that was kind of an indefinite thing from him. I had no idea if he was going to want to come back to the band. And then our guitarist, Patty, he and I were kind of working on the music, but then he just was dealing with a lot of his own things. So it very much so kind of, for many years, was something that I was really trying to work on. And that's when it got to that where I asked Logan, because I was like, hey, you know, I can only do so much here. I'm not really a guitarist. And I had kind of asked him to help me retrack some of the guitars, reshape some of the parts, bring some parts in where things felt a little light. And he actually brought 2 entire songs into the record. And when that was all really constructed, and, you know, we kind of redid like the years of work that I had been working on the record. We kind of came back at it, and then within maybe 3 months, we like redid the whole thing. And that's when I kind of showed it to everyone again. It was like, look, like, this is way different than anything that we've done, but like this can be what brings us all back together. You know, this doesn't have to be the band on a label and stressing about your numbers and who are you making happy and who are you playing favors for. You know, we can just do this like we used to because we wanted to have fun together and do something that meant something to all of us. So
that's very well put, very well said. So basically, you had the layout for this new album for a while. New lineup happened, and then basically reshaped it and remade it to what it is today. Now, when and how did Jeff Key come into the play here? Why go with him out of all the producers in the world?
You know, Logan brought him up to me because initially when I had heard all of Logan's material, I was I loved the structure of it, and I also really liked the mix. And when he let me know that, like, hey, that's my buddy Jeff, you know, let me contact him and see if he wants to do it, I was absolutely all for that, just more so than anything because of how willing and how eager he was to work on it. And that was something we in the past have struggled with some producers, because it's like our label would send us there and they may not even really our record, you know, or they may just be doing it for the paycheck. And it's like, Jeff just wanted to do it because he wanted to do it and he was excited about it. And that was new to me. And that was, you know, equally as exciting to me. So that's what really made me feel confident about that. And it couldn't have turned out better.
I agree completely. That's an awesome coming to be story there. And again, shout out to Jeff for one, making this interview happen. Two,
big shout out.
Yeah. Two, making that album sound amazing. Logan, I have a quick question for you. Jake mentioned that you brought a couple songs of your own to this new album. What songs off this album really had your stamp on it?
So, like, completely original songs, Empathy and Seven Stages were, like, songs that I just had written. Like Jake said, too, there was a lot of... There's a couple songs that I didn't touch at all, but there's a lot of, like, parts and, like, restructuring that I brought in. The song Dismal was actually, like, just drums. Yeah, just Jake's drums, and I wrote, like, all the guitars around, like, a song of just drums.
Really?
So that was, like, very interesting, because I had never done anything like that previous to working with Reflections. My writing process is usually writing everything kind of around guitar. So that was, like, a very interesting way to write a song. But I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, I thought it came out, like, pretty cool for... you know, I was nervous, like, going into it because it was something new, but it was a lot of fun. I think it came out really, really cool for like how it was set up. It came out pretty cool.
Right, a weird, fun challenge for a song.
Yeah.
Now, there might be some guitarists out there, myself included, that are interested. What kind of equipment are you using, Logan?
I'm really happily endorsed by Kiesel. I've been endorsed by a couple other companies before Kiesel Guitars. My first endorsement was with a company called Dalbello. They're like a really small company based out of Ontario, Canada, and they were like a startup that ended up not working out. So then after that, I went with Ibanez, and I liked Ibanez at first, but what sucked about Ibanez was they didn't care about me as, like, an artist. They didn't really support me. They basically were just like, hey, we'll give you guitars for a discount, and, like, that was it. I never, like, heard from them. There was never any, like, promotion, nothing. Actually, after I joined Reflections, I went to this year's NAMM, and I met up with my artist rep. His name's Brandon, and I met Jeff there as well. And, you know, I talked to him, and they seemed like awesome people, and they were like, yeah, let's try to work something out. So I worked out a deal with them, and now I'm with Kiesel, and it's honestly really nice. It's like being part of a family, you know, and that's what I look for when I'm trying to, like, you know, be endorsed by a company. It's like, I don't want to just be a part of this big corporate, you know, company where I'm just some, like, cog in a machine.
Right.
I want to be a part of something that feels like a family to me, and like we're all working towards something together. So that's something I love about Kiesel guitars. So for guitars, I'm using Kiesel. Patty is as well. For live equipment, I'm using a Helix, the Line 6 Helix. Patty is as well. And I use a black-orange 412. My live setup is really simple. You know, I just run the Helix through power amp into the cab, and then we usually DI out for, you know, the audience sound, DI out for that, and then the cab is really just for stage volume. And then, fun fact for people who don't know, I'm also endorsed by Neural DSP, and their plugin, the Fortin Nameless plugin that they have, is actually what we use to do all the guitars on the album.
So what's funny about this, I want to say 2 or 3 days ago, and I messaged you about this too. I just started figuring out how to record with this whole quarantine, sitting at home, not a whole lot going on. So I got the STL tones from Will Putney. Sounds great. But then I was scrolling through Instagram, and someone had that Nameless amp sim, and I was like, oh, that sounds really good. Let me see who all uses that. Lo and behold, here is your name popping up on the website, and I said, well, all right, so it's got to be good, and went from there. And I do love how the amp sounds. So, yeah, I do recommend this to anyone out there that might be into this. How's everyone staying sane with the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think it's really cool. I know myself and I know Logan also, we stay really busy with music projects. So, you know, and I kind of manage a lot of stuff for the band now, too. So I'm doing, like, a lot of merch designs, having a bunch of fun trying to figure out tour reschedules because we had plans. We had a really cool year kind of lined up here that got put on hold. So counteracting that, working on, you know, our solo projects and taking time to work on new material. So cleaning.
Cleaning, yeah. You got to get some cleaning in.
But just staying creative, going outside. I go outside every single day. I'm working out every day. You know, you got to just keep your mind occupied and make sure that you're making yourself tired at the end of the day so you can go to sleep.
What about you, Logan? What are you doing to stay sane?
I've been really busy, honestly. I have been lucky enough to keep my job, so that's been really nice. So I can work from home. I work at home full time. I am also going to school. I just started my master's program for digital marketing, so that's keeping me really busy.
Yeah, I'd say.
And then, you know, my free time is basically like recently I've restarted watching The Walking Dead, so I'll do that. And you know, I've been working on an album for my solo project, Dow Ave, and I've been writing some new songs for Reflections too.
Good. I'm glad everyone's staying busy, staying healthy, all that stuff. Anyone watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or is it just me?
I have not. I've been on a Breaking Bad kick again.
See, I haven't started that yet. It might be a good time to do that.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of the funniest shows I've ever watched, and I could talk about that a whole episode, but I'm not gonna because I have other things to talk about. A quick question, because I thought about this the other day. You guys dropped the album, I don't want to say in the middle of this pandemic, but not at the beginning, and we're not at the end yet. Is it a good or bad time to drop an album? And I'm asking that question because video games are being delayed. movies are canceled or being delayed, I think about first week sales. I think about people with unemployment. I think about all these things. From your perspective as a band that, 1, dropped an album, 2, a little bit bigger, 3, has an idea of how music works, is it a good or bad time to drop an album, Jake?
I think it would be a rough time to start an album, like a campaign for your album. I think we got extremely lucky in our timing because, like you said, like this problem existed when things were starting for us, but we got to really put our campaign out, and there wasn't a lot of media blocking it at the time. We actually had a couple other really awesome albums that were also coming out around that time, so like Invent and Polaris, and so having some of those like other bands just helping create that environment for social media, that was really good, and we saw very, very good numbers for our first week and second week album sales. But I don't know, because it, like you said, right after our album kind of came out, like I had high hopes that maybe it wouldn't become something like this, but seeing what it has become, I don't know if I would want to start an album campaign of ours for that matter right now. Maybe a larger band could break through that, because no matter where you go on the internet, there's so much stuff getting posted all the time about this right now. But at the same time, you're not worried about your numbers as much. And, I have an album coming out in 2 days here on my project Omaya, and I'm not really worried about that. I just want to put that out now so people have more music to listen to,
Yeah.
So if you're very concerned about your numbers, could be good, could be bad. Who knows? That just depends on your marketing, really. But if you just want to support your fans, absolutely the right time,
Okay.
100%.
I see that both ways. Thank you for that answer, because I'm trying to gather information on this from smaller, larger record labels, everything, just different perspectives on this, because no one really is used to this yet, and we really haven't experienced anything like this before. So it's worth talking about.
Right.
So now we're going to get into some fun stuff. What would your dream Reflections tour be? We'll start with Jake, and then we'll go to Logan.
And I would love to be on the road with Emir.
Oh yeah,
I love that band, and I also love Josh, and I love Baby J. And we toured with them with Glass Cloud, and that was probably like one of the most fun tours we've ever had.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I feel like hitting it with Emir would be awesome. I would love to be on the road with Spite. I met them a few years ago, and seeing how they have just absolutely launched and just taken off over these past few years has been so awesome. Man, it would be so sick to travel with Gojira.
Right.
That would be insane. I don't know, or like if we even got to play some shows with Meshuggah or something, that would just be bonkers to me. So
that's awesome. What about you, Logan? Who are you going to tour with?
I'd say Attack got back together, and we did the Stickly reunion tour.
I would be the first in line for that. So here's a quick story about Attack. I was at there was a tour in 2012 called Scream It Like You Mean It. I don't know if you guys remember that tour or anything like it. Bands like Woe Is Me, In Fear and Faith, Acacia Strain was on there. Attack, We Came as Romans. Attack was at the I think they were the headlining band. This was at an outdoor venue, and it was an all-day thing. Stage split in half, and it was an all-day thing. I'm talking hours upon hours of music, and it was a good day until the lightning storm came in. And We Came as Romans, I think, just did their intro song, and security and everyone rushed out. Rain is just pouring down, lightning, everything else, and they rushed the band off the stage, and they put everyone... They were like, all right, the show's kind of done. And I don't really understand how this happened, because there was an outdoor venue and you could walk inside, and then there was the indoor venue. Everyone just filtered inside, and everyone was just standing inside to just get out of the rain. But then this mob mentality happened, and everyone was just screaming like, just do the show inside. And they were like, all the equipment's outside. We can't just do it inside. And no one was understanding that. And everyone was just chanting, attack, 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 over and over. And then Caleb Shomo comes out. Everyone just shuts up. Pure silence. He comes out. He's like, hey, I'm going to go get a guitar. I'm going to play a few songs. Everyone's like, yeah. So he does that. He goes gets a guitar, plays a couple songs. He says, all right, thanks. And then they broke up. So that was my Attack story.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So to continue, what who else are you going to tour with? Attack?
I think that would be sick, but I was joking. That's probably never going to happen. I think a really cool lineup for me personally, this would also never happen, but for me personally, I think like a headliner being like Periphery would be sick.
Oh yeah.
With Era, Humanity's Last Breath, and like Spirit Box as an opener, that'd be a really awesome tour for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you got this kind of planned out, something you've been thinking about for a while.
Yeah, I wish that would happen, but
the
likelihood is not in my favor, I don't think.
We'll see. So this next question, I'm going to start with Jake, and then we'll go to Logan. What advice would you give to new or aspiring bands? Mistakes you've made, things you wish you could, I don't know, go back and be like, hey, idiot, do this instead, or anything like that?
Man, that's tough.
Because you have to admit that it is a different music world now compared to when it was however long ago.
Something we definitely say is that, always try and keep up with the now, because things change constantly, and what you think might be the best strategy for, your marketing or whatever might be completely outdated, and you shouldn't try and think of what like other people are doing that's the best way. Try and think of that, what the next step is going to be that everyone else is going to try and do. So just trying to think of new things and, just go with what you feel is like really right, and take chances. That's where some of the best things happen, and don't be afraid of making mistakes.
Very well said. What about you, Logan? Any advice?
Oh man, I could make an entire podcast out of this subject. I'll try to. I have a few points, but I'll make it as short as I can.
Okay.
One of the biggest mistakes I think I made was something that Jake said, where he brought up, like, stay up to date with what's going on in the market. And, I grew up in a time where touring was everything. Like, if you wanted to make it as a band, you had to get out like an EP and then just tour everywhere you can, and that's how you made it. And through the past, I'd say like 4 or 5 years, the industry has changed out of that mindset and into more of like a branding online market. So like, for example, a band I was talking about earlier that I was in, Mother Sound, one of the biggest issues with that band and why it fell apart was they had that mindset, because, they were all the same age as me and like older, and they grew up with that mindset too, that touring was how you made it. And they didn't focus on branding anything. They didn't focus on an online presence. And now with music, it's more of like you get music out and you get a demand for live shows from the internet. You put out music and promote it, and people listen to it, and you grow your audience online first, so that when you go tour, it's not, you're like 500 miles from home playing in like this tiny like basement to like 2 kids. You know,
Right.
you'll be successful. You won't be losing money, which is unfortunately something that I've learned the hard way, but you know, have adapted to over time and learning the lesson. But I think another important thing is like to know your goals and to know the people in your band, their goals as well, because people do music for a lot of different reasons, you know? So if your goals aren't lining up, obviously things are going to fall apart, or you're going to have to kick them out, or they're going to leave. So a really, really important thing is to know what your goal is and have everyone be on the same page. And also, with that being said, don't be disappointed by people, because people are going to disappoint you all the time, and it's not a personal thing. You can't take it personally, which is something I used to do. But it's just more of like, you have to look at where people are at in life, and some people just, you know, they don't want to be in a band full time, and that's like their life. You know, some people just want to do it for fun, and you have to accept that, and it's not a personal thing. And moving on from that, I think the most important things you can do is be persistent, because it's all about timing. Everything about music is timing, and you have to be ready for it. So you have to constantly keep working. For example, if Reflections would have asked me to be in the band even 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do it because I wasn't a good enough guitar player. So it's like everything comes in the right timing, whether you think it is the right timing or not. You know what I mean? You just have to be open to the opportunities that present themselves, and you have to be willing to constantly work and just be open to the things that come your way. And like Jake said, don't be afraid to fail, because I can't tell you how many times I've failed. You know, like you go through 20, 30 people telling you no just to get one yes, and that one yes is completely worth it. And it might take forever. It might take years. But if you really want something and you're persistent and dedicated towards that goal, it will absolutely happen. And it doesn't matter. Like, I've had people tell me, like, oh, I can't do this because I live in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody out here who plays music. And it's just an excuse, you know. You can, especially with the tools we have at our disposal now, you can like put out videos on the internet. You can really push yourself in ways that you couldn't like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You can do that now that you couldn't before. And I guess my last point is, a lot of people think being in a band is some sort of like luxury lifestyle, and it's not. It is very, very hard. Even when you get to like a bigger band level, it's very hard being on the road, and you have to learn how to take care of yourself. Like my early touring days, I would get blasted drunk and like every single night and think that was cool. And then I would wonder, why am I getting sick? You know, or like I would eat McDonald's every night and I'd be like, wow, why am I getting sick? You know, and it's like that on the road lifestyle is very, very difficult. And you have to really have those goals that I mentioned before that you need to have. Those goals will keep you going through the hard times, which there will definitely be. No matter what level you're at, there's going to be hard times. And your goals will push you through that and make, the good times, which there are plenty as well. There's a lot of good times. It'll make those a lot more valuable to you.
Very well said,
so
both of you.
That's my gist, basically.
Yeah, all good points. I hope people are out there writing this stuff down because it's pretty good points. We got a couple questions left. You guys both have solo things going on for yourselves, but what's coming up for the rest of the year for Reflections?
Well, we had one of the festivals in Europe or in Italy that we were going to do has now been rescheduled, but we could potentially, I am really not sure, be making our first trip overseas this year to the UK for Tech Fest. If that doesn't happen, then we do have our album release show coming up later this year, which is also going to be sort of a tour that we're doing that hasn't been announced yet. But, fingers crossed that we're still able to do that. Very excited to be out on the road and seeing people for the first time. And, we haven't toured for 4 years easy. So it'll be really cool to do that again and really come out strong and ready like we've never have been before. And then just writing, we want to really stay ahead of everything. And we have some pretty cool plans for releasing new music that we think will be really new. A cool way to start releasing music, especially for a metal band. So I'm excited about that as well.
All right. You piqued my interest. Any final words for fans out there listening? Anything you want to say to old-time fans that have been there since the first album, new fans that you've acquired with the release of the new album? We'll start with Jake, and then we'll go to Logan.
I guess to old fans, if anyone listens to this, and if they're ever, if they ever miss certain things about our old music, I just want to let everyone know that, and I've said this before online, but we will always try and write a different album. So if something comes out from us and you're not huge on it, it's that's cool, dude. This will be the one of its kind from our catalog, So, and that's just how we strive to keep things fresh and creative. I love all of the people that listen to music. I feel extremely lucky that every single person that I've met that has been at one of our shows or that I've talked to has always been just is seemingly a very genuine, cool person. So, thank you guys for listening to the album. It's so crazy to see how many people connect with Willow, and that means so much to me personally, just because of what went into that album. And I really can't wait to get out on the road and see people again. Cheers. Thank you.
How about you, Logan?
I want to say thank you up front, and I think, any band that goes away for as long as Reflections did, I've seen bands do that and try to come back, and it just doesn't happen, especially in today's market. It's so easy for, people to just find new music and, forget about other bands. And, it's hard enough for a band to stay relevant even in just their album cycle. So the fact that people still cared after 4 or 5 years is such a blessing. And honestly, those people are the best, you can't just find that anywhere. That's very valuable. And it honestly is just very touching. It means a lot. And I super appreciate it. And I want any of the fans to know that, I care about all of you. And if you ever need anything, just come up to me at a show, talk to me, reach out to me on social media. I'm always around, always down to talk. And thank you again.
Sweet. Thank you guys so much for being on this episode of the podcast, Jake and Logan. I'll be talking to you here in a second off air, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. That's Jake and Logan from the band Reflections. They have a brand new album out called Willow. You got to check it out. It's really heavy, really well put together. They got other albums out as well. The Fantasy Effect, Exist, The Color Clear. But yeah, Reflections is back. Very happy I was able to interview these guys and talk to them. Thank you guys for checking out this episode of the podcast. Really appreciate it as always. Hope everyone's staying safe out there. Hopefully everything blows over and we get back to the live music world again. We'll see you guys next time.